Hi, I'm Blanca Kempel, the science-based nutritionist based in Basel, and I have a holistic approach. And what does that mean? In every presentation, I cover all the pillars of the health and well-being. So that is mental, emotional, physical, nutritional, and spiritual, because nothing in our body works in the isolation. So the mind, body, and spirit, they are interconnected. So, for example, if you are struggling with the negative thoughts or limiting beliefs, it has impact on your emotions. So you might have fear, anger, sadness, and this, of course, has an impact on your physical activity. You are either going to overtrain to get all the stress out of you, or you are going to be completely inactive and maybe indulge in emotional overeating, which has impact on your nutritional well-being. And spiritual, what does that mean? So it's nothing to do with the religion. Spirit is the purpose in your life. Why are you here? What makes you get up in the morning? What fulfills you? The gratitude that you feel at the end of the day. And what are we going to talk about today? So today we are going to talk about the menopause and andropause. What happens in our body when the hormones are misfiring? And maybe you're thinking, oh, this is not yet my case. But what if your colleagues or your loved ones are going through this transitional time? What if they cannot perform in their fullest potential? And what if you, by knowing what's happening to them, can support them? So what will you learn in this presentation? You will learn what are hormones. So there will be the basic biochemistry, and then the impact of hormonal imbalance on your mood, on your sleep, on your weight, on your digestion. And once you identify the signs and symptoms where you might be deficient, we will look at the practical tips of which dietary and lifestyle changes you can make to get yourself out of the hormonal roller coaster. So first, what are hormones? So hormones are chemical messengers and they trigger some response in the cell. They are traveling in the bloodstream and it's a little bit like the key and the lock system. So every cell in our body has a receptor and the key, the hormone comes, attaches and passes the message to the cell. And the cell, depending what cell it is and what's supposed to do, it will, for example, create serotonin, the happy hormone. And serotonin is not only the happy hormone, but it's also increasing the motility of our intestine. So it basically helps you to move the stool away and eliminate all the toxins. Melatonin is a sleeping hormone. So when the darkness hits the retina in your eye, melatonin is released and sends the signals to the cells. It's time to relax, sleep, and recover. Oxytocin is a cuddly hormone, and insulin is a mega important hormone in our body because it opens the gates on the cells and says the cell, please take inside the glucose and turn it into the energy, ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is a currency, it's like dollars in our body, to pay to other cells in the body to do something. So for example, if you want that your muscles are contracting, you need to pay 3 ATP because cells don't work for free. They also want to be paid. Building blocks like a Lego of these hormones are proteins, amino acids. So that's why it's very important to eat sufficient amount of protein. And then we have other hormones, and they are called steroid hormones, because the main building block of these hormones is cholesterol, and that is a fat. They cannot travel in the bloodstream on their own because fat doesn't agree with water. So they need a help of taxi drivers that are from protein. And this is sex hormone binding globulins or albumin or other transporters. So The main steroid hormones are sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, but even cortisol, the stress hormone. And in a little while, I'm going to show you how they actually compete with each other and how they steal the energy, the building blocks from each other. We also need signaling molecule called nitric oxide. And this one is important for the blood flow so that all the oxygen can go to every cell of the body and we can think clearly, we can focus, our muscles have enough energy. And for example, for men, if they don't have enough of nitric oxide, they might suffer with erectile dysfunction and high blood pressure. So at the end of this presentation, we are going to talk about the food that increases the nitric oxide. And we also want to look today at prostaglandins. So they cause pain and inflammation. So for example, drugs like ibuprofen or aspirin are blocking these receptors so that the pain cannot be felt. That is actually not the solution. What we want to look at is how to decrease the production of prostaglandins and therefore remove the pain in a natural way with food. So what can actually go wrong in this signaling? So imagine that you want to send me a message. You are the hormone, you carry the message, and I am the cell. So it's like a mobile phone. You send me a message, but if I have a wrong signaling, I don't receive your message, and then I don't know what you want me to do. Also, you might send me a message, but it's in a different language and I don't understand it. So again, I cannot do what I am supposed to do. Or I then switch on my mobile phone and I receive thousands and thousands of messages for everything I should do. And I feel extremely overloaded and I am cell that will resist. And this is called insulin resistant. I just decide that whatever you told me to do, I will not do. And the last obstacle can be some missing or broken building blocks. So the receptors we said are from protein, but they also need, for example, zinc and magnesium and vitamin C and collagen to function properly. So we will look at all these building blocks, how we can eat them in the food or how we can supplement them so that we can have properly signaling cells and hormones. And since we are going to talk about steroid hormones today, let's look deeply what it actually means and where they are produced. So, testosterone and estrogen in a reproductive age is produced from the ovaries and from testes. But as we are aging and approaching the menopause, these organs are slowly shutting off. And then other organs, for example, like adrenal glands that are sitting above the kidneys, need to take over. And imagine, this is like a factory that has one production line, and it can therefore produce only one product at one particular moment. So if you are stressed all day long, running away from the tiger, juggling in between the work and the family life, your adrenal gland wants to save you, and therefore all the building blocks like cholesterol and the pregnenolone is going to build cortisol, and this is called cortisol steal, because cortisol steals all the building blocks and occupies all the machinery in the adrenal glands to get you out of the potential danger, the perceived stress that you see in your head. It's not an actual stress. And that's why you might be suffering with low testosterone and low estrogen. So let's look at why we actually need these sex hormones. And they're not only for sex. So estrogen is not only for reproduction and making the ovulation, the eggs, but also it has effect on the learning, memory, skin, mood, body temperature, blood glucose, heart rate, protein synthesis, cholesterol, and water retention. So that's why we want to have optimal levels of estrogen. And progesterone is not only a pregnancy hormone, But it's also a precursor of other steroid hormones, as you could have seen on the previous slide. And what's very interesting is that, for example, during the pregnancy, ladies report that their asthma, autoimmune disease, or rheumatoid arthritis has gone. They don't feel pain anymore. And this is because progesterone regulates inflammation. It actually suppresses the immune system. So we don't feel the pain and we are not showing the signs and symptoms of inflammation. So therefore, we also want to have optimal levels of progesterone, man and female. And then testosterone is not only a male hormone, it is also present in female. And I see many of my clients skyrocketing on the testosterone and being very low in estrogen. So what is the main tasks for the testosterone in our body? So it contributes to the aggressiveness and the leadership behavior, muscle mass, and the ability to take risk, and even the competition. So sportsmen, they are higher on the testosterone because that's what they need for the dopamine and the action and the competitiveness, and also the physical and mental energy and libido. So now you might be thinking, where am I? How do I know if I'm high in estrogen, low in estrogen, progesterone, testosterone? That's what we are going to look at just now. So if you are low in estrogen, you might have dry eyes using the drops in your eyes. You might have dry nose and dry vagina. And why this? Because estrogen is responsible for mucin, creation of mucus, the fluidity. And why do we need mucus in our nose and in our vagina? Because in this part, we have the immunoglobulins that are actually trapping the viruses and bacteria and preventing us from the infection. So as soon as we have dry nose, you might suffer with sinuses, and with dry vagina, you might actually experience urinary tract infection. It's because the bacteria penetrated through the vagina and got inflammation into your urinary tract. And this is a chemical stress for our body. Our body is trying to fight these enemies and creates more inflammation and more stress. Therefore, you can see already the connection. You might have high cortisol levels that are not caused only by the psychological stress, but the chemical stress happening in your body. And what will happen if you have low estrogen and you have high cortisol levels and you are running away from the tiger? Your body has no time for reproduction, therefore increasing the estrogen. No, you might have irregular period. 1 month, yes. 1 month, no. 1 month, no. And you might also grow a belly fat. And this is because high cortisol is going to increase the blood glucose levels that you already have high from eating carbohydrates. And then the hormone insulin needs to remove it. But the cells are saying, no more. You gave me for breakfast, from lunch, for dinner. I still have enough of work to turn into the energy. So the liver will turn all that sugar into fat and store it on your belly. When you have low estrogen levels, you might even notice that you have dry skin or dull hair, or you're maybe even losing hair. And you might feel that you have a memory problems and concentration problems. You are forgetting things. You don't really know what you were supposed to do. That's because estrogen is usually needed to stimulate the dopamine and adrenaline in our head. And this will all cause also the mood swings and the depression. Because if we have low levels of estrogen, we also have low levels of serotonin, the happy hormone. Estrogen is also responsible for thermoregulation, so the body temperature, hot and cold. So you might feel the hot flushes, but then you might feel really cold in the evening. It's just these changes. And of course, you might suffer with the headaches and migraines, is this is due to the vasoconstriction in your head and the blood flow not going freely. and low libido, of course. Let's look at what can happen if you are high in estrogen. Because remember, during the perimenopause and menopause, we are on a roller coaster. 1 week you can be high, 1 week you can be low. So if you are high in estrogen, maybe you are suffering with water retention. You might have swollen fingers, swollen feet. Your belly might be bloated. You feel the whole body is like a balloon, and you might be suffering with the constipation. And constipation is a big topic. The problem is that if you don't go to the toilet every single day, you are accumulating all the toxins in your body, and also the metabolites, which is basically broken down parts of the hormones, and they are in the stool. But as the stool is hanging around your intestine for way too long, some of these metabolites can penetrate the gastrointestinal wall, and they get back into the bloodstream and back into the circulation. Therefore, they can again act on the cells and cause even more damage, even higher levels of estrogen. So if you know you suffer with constipation, we are going to look at how you can remove constipation. Also, if you are high levels of estrogen, that's basically in the follicular phase when the body is preparing for the ovulation, you might suffer with fibroids and endometriosis because the thickening of the wall is higher and bigger due to the high estrogen levels. And then when actually the estrogen levels go down and you are having menstruation, you might have really heavy period with pain and also the premenstrual cycle just before you get your first day. You might suffer with headaches and migraines and even fibrocystic breast, because again, estrogen is produced even in the breast from the fat cells in the breast, and it's causing these fibroids and the cysts. And this is very dangerous because it can cause the breast cancer and then actually even ovarian cancer. High levels of cortisol and stress, of course, because everything that is up or down is very stressful for the body. So that's that chemical stress. And if you combine it with your perceived psychological stress, it's a massive chemical cocktail. And this can lead to hyperglycemia, which is high blood glucose levels, insulin resistance when the cells say no, and overweight. But before I tell you how to get out of this misery, we also need to address men and even female. So if you are low in testosterone, especially for men, you might have noticed that you have abdominal fat. Is this like beer belly, low libido, erectile dysfunction, enlarged breast, and this is due to higher levels of estrogen. As the testosterone goes down, estrogen goes up. And maybe you have also noticed a reduced muscle mass. So even though you are still exercising, the muscles are just not growing because this testosterone, this anabolic hormone, is not building it. And you might, after your session, feel muscle pain and fatigue. Therefore, even your motivation is gone. You might have poor memory and concentration, is the similar that we had with the estrogen, and feel anxious and depressed. You might have poor sleep because you don't have enough testosterone and therefore enlarged prostate, and you might need to go to the toilet more often, and you are just twisting around in the bed, not getting into the deep, profound sleep where normally the testosterone would be produced so that you can get up in the morning and feel energized. Because men, they operate on a 24-hour cycle, and it's really predictable. When the cortisol is high and when the melatonin is high, the testosterone is low, and in the morning, no, it's actually when the cortisol goes high in the morning, so goes the testosterone. And when the melatonin goes on, the testosterone goes down. And of course, if you are low in testosterone, you might probably have infertility issues. So how can we rebalance the hormones? So for all of us, the most important is to get out of the blood sugar roller coaster, because we don't want to spike the insulin. When we spike the insulin, the anabolic hormone that is supposed to remove the glucose out of the bloodstream, and the cells don't take it, it gets turned into the fat. So insulin is the anabolic hormone, and sometimes it's called also fat maker. So how do we do that? By eating low carbohydrate diet, and we will dive into it a little bit later. Caffeine. Yeah, let's talk coffee. Everybody loves coffee. I love coffee too. But imagine if you are stressed and during the day you don't have time to eat, you go for a coffee because you believe it's going to pick you up. But you already have high levels of cortisol and adrenaline. So by drinking that coffee, you spike it even more. And what happens? High cortisol, high blood glucose level, high insulin, and you are in the roller coaster. So what about having just one coffee per day? Would that be possible? Constipation, big topic, and I already told you. The importance is to eliminate the waste products. If you eat 3 times a day, you must eliminate the stool 3 times a day. Okay, at least once, but not to go to the toilet every second, third, or fifth day. That's not possible. So what can you do? If you suffer with constipation, there can be a variety of reasons, of course. Maybe you are not eating enough fruit and vegetable, because we need soluble and insoluble fiber. So the insoluble fiber basically creates the bulk and the shape of the stool, and soluble fiber brings there the mucus and makes it softer so that you can easier pass it away. So 7 to 10 portions of vegetable. What is actually a portion? Portion is what is the size of your hand. So you grab a lettuce, 1 portion, 1 handful. So maybe for lunch, if you eat salad, you want to have 4 handfuls of rucola or salad, or 1 handful of baby cherry tomatoes, 1 handful of cucumber. And like this, we would already get to 4-5 portions in 1 salad. That would be great. We need to get to 10. So for dinner, again, you must think maybe steamed spinach, broccoli, or you can also have 2 pieces of fruit. So 1 apple, handful of berries, for example, for breakfast. And if that doesn't work, you can use magnesium hydroxide, or even magnesium citrate, magnesium taurate. You can have a combination. So you start with 375 milligrams of magnesium supplement 1 to 2 hours before you go to sleep. And if that doesn't work to remove the constipation, you can increase up to 700 milligrams. We also want to avoid the environmental stressors because they act as endocrine disruptors. What that means? They are mimicking hormones. So remember, that can be aluminum, mercury, it can be pesticides, herbicides that you bought in an inorganic vegetable. So as we have the cells and we have the receptors, this mercury or aluminum comes and it will attach, it will mimic the key hormone and then block the receptors. Therefore, your real hormones cannot be excreted, or your brain gets the signals, hey, we have enough, and stops producing. Or some of these endocrine disruptors, they can actually mimic the hormone and make the cell will make the action. So it's going to create even more heat, more hot flushes, for example. Obesity, of course. Obesity, because the fat is actually creating estrogen and hormones as well. But in men, for example, instead of turning it into the testosterone, it will turn it into the estrogen. So we obviously want to lose the weight in a natural way. So you don't have to go to the gym, you don't have to run the marathons. But what about just switching on the music and maybe listening for 3 songs and dancing in the rhythm. So it's going to increase your mood, it's going to increase the metabolism, and sleep is crucial. You should sleep 7 to 9 hours, but it's in uninterrupted sleep. That is that you go through all the 4 stages of the sleep. You go into the deep delta waves where all the recovery happens and the consolidation of the memory and other parts. But we could have a full presentation on this. You need micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, because they are building blocks for the synthesis of the hormones and also for the transporters. Do you remember the taxi drivers in the blood, and also for the elimination? So let's look at how can we manage the blood glucose levels. And this is with a low carbohydrate diet, paleo and keto. I am very neutral and I never recommend any special diet. It is about variety. But low carbohydrate in general, when we approach a certain age, 40 plus, our body doesn't actually need as much energy and we have to eat less. But as we have seen, we need to eat protein and we need to eat fat. So where can we cut? The only place where we can cut the calories in carbohydrates, because we actually even know that the glucose is toxic in the bloodstream and it's spiking the insulin. And the aim for us is not to spike the insulin at all. So we can do the time restricted eating. So maybe you have already heard about intermittent fasting, which means that you are, for example, 16 hours without the food, and then you have an 8 hours feeding window where you eat maybe 3 meals or maybe only 2 meals. So it can look like this. You start your day with brunch. It can be at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. But remember, when you are breaking the fast, you must break it with protein and fat, never with carbohydrates. So you are not going to have granola or cornetto, or what is it, pain au chocolat in France with a coffee. No, because you would immediately spike the insulin, adrenaline, and cortisol. So we want to start with, for example, omelette or poached egg with spinach and tomatoes. Or maybe you want to make a protein pancakes. That's what I love. That's what I have very often for breakfast. And how would you make it? So you would take kefir, chia seeds, you soak it overnight. Even you can put there, for example, oats, and then you put there 2 eggs. And in the morning, you fry this mixture on the pan in a coconut oil. So this is a protein pancake, and you can add there a handful of berries. I wouldn't add their banana because it's quite high in sugar. So that would be example of a breakfast. And you definitely want to avoid snacking because it's already enough to eat 3 times per day. Because remember, we want to tackle this blood glucose roller coaster. So every single time you eat, you spike the insulin. So if you eat only 3 times a day, you spike it only 3 times a day. And if you eat low carbohydrate diet, you're actually not spiking it that much. And therefore you are keeping a stable blood glucose levels. Then you would want to add food that is high in chromium. And that would be, for example, apples or onions. Just in case you are suffering with bloating and farting, apples and onions are actually not good for you. You definitely want to include B3, this niacin, and that is in chicken, and it's in potatoes, and it's in broccoli. So basically everything that you see on the picture, it's the right food to support insulin sensitivity. Right? So we were talking about insulin resistance. That is when the cells say, no, I'm not going to open the gate and you are not going to bring the glucose inside. And to improve the insulin sensitivity, it's almost like bribing the cells. You tell them, please open the gates and take the glucose in and turn it into energy so that I can flow through my days with ease. What you can also do is you can use cinnamon and apple cider vinegar, because the research showed they are improving insulin sensitivity and they are given to diabetic people too. So you can add cinnamon, for example, even to the pancakes that I was just mentioning to you. 1 spoon of cinnamon you put into this mixture, and then you have a lovely cinnamon pancakes. Or to every cake that you make, or maybe even half a teaspoon you put into your yogurt. Even into spicy Moroccan dishes or Indian dishes that you make, you can put there cinnamon. Apple cider vinegar you can put into your dressings, onto the salad, or you can even take unpasteurized, unfiltered apple cider vinegar, 1 spoon, put it into the glass and drink it before every meal, because this helps to increase the hydrochloric acid in our stomach and improve the digestion and burn the calories. Sport is important as well. Why in the blood glucose? Because when you do sport, you have more muscle, and muscle have mitochondria. It's these energy powerhouses that are actually creating more energy. And we also have glycogen stores, which means that we can store the glucose in our muscle and not in the body fat. And then when we are actually exercising, we can utilize this glucose for running faster, so we don't get tired as fast. So sport has many benefits. It also improves our brain chemistry. During the sport, you release endorphins, and endorphins are like serotonin, it's the happy hormones. Makes you feel fantastic. Sleep, we said it's very important, because it also improves the glucose tolerance. And then stress management. Stress, unfortunately, we cannot manage with food. This is only with the mental mindset. So you could, for example, do emotional freedom technique, that is tapping. You are tapping into the meridians in your body, and you are releasing the stress from the cells. And then you exhale it. But we could have a full session on that, how to do it. So let's look at how you can actually increase the estrogen. So if you really go through the menopause and you associated yourself with the signs and symptoms that we were talking about in this presentation, you definitely want to ditch the dieting and low calories, because we know that for the estrogen, we need the building block cholesterol. Also, you might want to avoid some of the anti-nutrients, like, for example, coffee, because coffee blocks the absorption of zinc and magnesium and other minerals into the cells. And then you might be deficient in the building blocks. The same goes, for example, for beans and lentils, because they have lectins, and lectins are also like toxins. So it can cause the inflammation, and it can also block the reabsorption of vitamins and minerals. And then you want to also regulate the omega-6. So omega-6 are pro-inflammatory. So for example, what is it? Sunflower seeds. Sunflower seeds, they are pro-inflammatory. Therefore, I would recommend to use more pumpkin seeds. And alcohol, of course, because alcohol is blocking the conversion of enzymes, and it's also stealing the zinc, because it needs it for the alcohol dehydrogenase to break down the alcohol and remove the toxins from the body. And for somebody, it can be dairy products like milk, and of course, sugar. You definitely want to avoid eating sugar, and maybe even gluten. So I would recommend to go on a gluten-free and dairy-free and alcohol-free and sugar-free diet for at least 21 days to see any improvement. What you want to include is anti-inflammatory food, and that would be omega-3. So all the seeds like chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, linseeds are high in omega-3. And what it means, it actually removes the inflammation from your body. You also want to add probiotics. And yes, you can buy them in pharmacy, but they are quite expensive. But you could eat them in the food. So for example, kimchi, which is a fermented cabbage, is very good, because what happens in the process of the fermentation is that bacteria eat the sugar and they produce gas. So that's this fermentation and other probiotics and prebiotics. And then when we eat it, it actually repopulates the good bacteria in our intestine, and they are helping us to create energy and even serotonin. So 70% of the serotonin is produced by the gut bacteria in our intestine, and only 30% in our brain. So you see, we need these 30 trillion bacteria in our intestine to be our friends and help us to be happy and healthy. You can also add fiber. So as I was mentioning before, it's a soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. So soluble fiber is the one that dissolves. So it only creates the gel and it doesn't cause diarrhea or constipation. And this can be, for example, psyllium husk. So you take 1 spoon of psyllium husk, this is this herb, but you can buy it in any healthy food shop. And you put it into the glass of water, and you can drink it directly, or you wait for 5 minutes and that creates the gel, and then you can eat this gel. And that creates basically the fiber, the gel creates like this mucousy feeling in your intestine, and it's trapping the toxins and removing it in the stool away. You can also drink green tea after your lunch because it is high in antioxidants. Add turmeric and ginger and sage and licorice into your meals. And of course, you can eat fish that is very high in omega-3. But remember, organic and preferably small fish like sardines or wild caught fish. You can also add lemon balm, lavender, L-theanine, and magnesium, which helps to calm down the nervous system and bring this parasympathetic nervous system rest and digest up and suppress the cortisol. So this would be if you are having, if you need to increase the estrogen. But in case you notice that you are high in estrogen and you would want to eliminate it, we said that this can be connected with the constipation. So for the constipation, we want to again eat the fiber and even cruciferous vegetables. So that's everything that has sulfur in it, what makes stinky farts, and that is broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, or for example, even artichokes and asparagus. They are very good for the detoxification. And you can add berries, blueberries, red currant, black currant, because they are very high in antioxidants. And antioxidants are catching the free radicals and removing them from the body away. You can add spices like rosemary and peppermint and licorice and nettle root. You also, for the correct detoxification, for the optimal detoxification, you need B12 and B6. And B12 is exclusively in animal products. So if you are a vegan, you need to supplement B12. And of course, you need to have sufficient amount of vitamin D. And many of my clients are deficient in vitamin D. Vitamin D is involved, it's a steroid hormone. It's also involved in the production of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, but also in the immune function and mental health. So research showed that people who were low, absolutely deficient in vitamin D, suffered with anxiety and depression. You can buy vitamin D in every pharmacy and supplement it every single day, or you can go to your doctor and get larger doses. So we need to improve digestion. We need to remove constipation, and that is with all the seeds and the fiber, but we also want to avoid the xenoestrogens, right? So that is the hormonal disruptors that are mimicking our hormones. And this can be, for example, mercury in the amalgam. So if you have fillings, just go to the dentist and make sure that you don't have there any cracks, because like this, all the gases and all the heavy metals are constantly swollen by you, and they can cross even the blood-brain barrier and cause the headaches and the brain fog and tiredness. Mercury is also, for example, in tuna, and I never recommend eating tuna, and of course pesticides. So if your budget allows, it would be wise to buy organic fruit and vegetable. And then, of course, parabens and hormones that we eat, for example, even in dairy products or in hormonal therapies that you might be going through. So let's look at how you can increase the testosterone. So this is mostly for men. You want to improve the sleep and you want to improve the insulin sensitivity. So it's the signaling, right? So that was, we have already seen, it was, for example, with the cinnamon, it was with the apple cider vinegar, B3 and chromium. But you also want to have high protein breakfast. So for men, this is usually not a problem because they can have omelette and even chicken and even fish, like sardines with a piece of bread for breakfast. And for lunch, you can have a bouillon. So it's basically made from the bones, and it has lots and lots of collagen in it. So we need collagen, but it also has, for example, amino acid L-glutamine that is important for the building of the testosterone. And you want to increase the physical activity, so exercise, but combine it well with rest and recovery. So for example, you will do one day high intensity interval training, and the next day you will, for example, do just a bodybuilding, so lifting the weights or doing push-ups, maybe yoga or Pilates with me, as I teach yoga and Pilates too. I teach body toning and bootcamp as well. And L-glutamine and L-arginine are in nuts and seeds and fish and meat. So Brazil nuts, 3 Brazil nuts per day, or 10 shrimps for lunch or for dinner would be absolutely brilliant. For the prevention of the prostate cancer, you definitely want to include enough zinc and lycopene. Drink green tea or nettle tea. So zinc is found in pumpkin seeds, oysters, seafood. So that might not be a problem for you. And lycopene is in tomatoes. And actually, cooked tomatoes like passata or tomato sauces, bolognese sauce would be a wonderful source of lycopene. So cooked version is better than a raw version when we talk about tomatoes. And then there is a supplement. It's from the herb. It's called saw palmetto. You can see it here on the picture. And many of my male clients reported to me that they got rid of erectile dysfunction after taking the saw palmetto supplement that I recommended to them. So you can try that too. Or for example, fenugreek. It's a really nice spice, and you can buy it in different mixes like Moroccan spices, probably Thai spices will have it as well. Greek spices have fenugreek in there as well. And prevention of erectile dysfunction, when we talk about it, you can also use pine bark, which is pygnogenol, and there is a wonderful product called enzogenol, and on my website you can find the discount code. It's Blanca 10% with the website where you can purchase it, and you can purchase it even in the powders and make it as a cocktail. And this would be good also for females. So this is not only for male suffering with erectile dysfunction, for everybody who has high blood pressure and who needs to relax the arteries. And you can also eat food that is high in nitrate, so in a nitric oxide, which is, for example, beetroot. So beetroot juice, when you squeeze there the lemon, which is a combination of the vitamin C, which helps the absorption, is wonderful. And then magnesium. So as we mentioned already before, around 300 or 400 milligrams of magnesium citrate or magnesium hydroxide can help to relax the blood vessels, calm down the nervous system, improve the sleep, and also help with the muscle cramps and muscle pain. And omega-3, because it is anti-inflammatory. And this brings us to the end. So let's recapitulate. What have you learned? By now, you know what are hormones, the chemical messengers that are carrying the message to the cells and tells them what to do. You also maybe realized that you have some signs and symptoms of the hormonal imbalance, either insulin, cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, or testosterone, or all of them. You also know that I gave you a simple, science-based and sustainable strategies that you can implement today. And remember, it is step by step. It is about awareness. So if something in this presentation doesn't resonate with you because you have different opinion, that is absolutely fine. Take from it only what serves you and the rest let go. Maybe you need to accept that you are going through the transition and that you need to make some changes. And then you just take action. And if you have any questions, you can send me an email. You can schedule a 15-minute free discovery call, and we can find out if I can actually help you on your transition.